Welcome to the Caregivers Lounge, where we dive into the laughter, love, and lessons of caregiving. Because let's be real, this journey is unpredictable. I'm Shaunte Newby, your host, and whether you're caring for aging parents, deep in the caregiving trenches, just starting out, or simply curious about this world, you found the right place. Here, we share stories, swap insights, and remind each other that no one has to do this alone. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's unwind together. And don't forget to hit subscribe and follow the Caregivers Lounge wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Caregivers Lounge. This is your corner in the calm of the chaos of caregiving. As you know, I'm your host, Shaunte, and today we're going to talk about something real, the forms, the appointments, and that moment you realize that love and blood isn't always enough to legally advocate for someone you care about. I thought this was the perfect topic to get into since the last episode or two. We may have been talking about doctor's appointments and so forth, so I thought this was a good way to lead into this one. But before we get into it, I just wanted to update you all. I know last week I shared how I took my dad to one of his appointments and I had the date all wrong. So we did end up having his appointment. It was correct. I got there on time and he met his new doctor. So all is well. So just wanted to let you know how that went. All right, so let's get into it. You ever walk into a doctor's office thinking you're ready to handle business, only to get that look, "You're not authorized to be here." Yeah, I've seen that before. And let's talk about how to make sure that doesn't happen again. When I got started managing my dad at the level that I'm managing him now, I remember trying to sort through some medical stuff. And I remember making calls and I was struggling to get things done. I was frustrated because I had gone through that whole ordeal with my dad. And I'm thinking to myself, well, look, while I was in the hospital with him, it was so much easier for me to take over and get things done. And I imagine it was because I was with him. But I just remember trying to move things forward and take care of things for him. It was like, well, you're not authorized. You're not authorized. And I will say sometimes it helped that we had the same last name. So I didn't have to go through too many hoops. But I do remember some of the times where it's like I needed some sort of formal authorization or he needed to okay me getting the information. So we're going to talk about some things that maybe you already have these things, or maybe you need to get them in place, or at least think about getting them in place. Because if you don't, if you're not on paper, you're not in the room, no matter how much you care. These people won't tell you anything. They won't release anything to you. And how are you going to be effective and taking care of your loved one if you don't have the right authorizations and the right information? So I guess if I had to share some tips, I want to share 3 important documents that you should think about getting for your loved one, right? So the first one is the medical power of attorney or a healthcare proxy. I think for me, it was a medical directive. And basically, this gives you legal permission to make medical decisions if your loved one can't. So it's if they can't make a decision. And we have that in place for my father now. I'm the one. We've even had an incident years ago when he was in the hospital, and I don't know if I was out of town. And my sister was like, nope, nobody can do anything until my sister gets here. And I remember that everyone was waiting on me to get there to decide what could be done for him or to him at the time. He's okay now, by the way, if you don't know. All right. So the next document, this one is a HIPAA authorization. And I believe you would have to get this with each of the loved one's providers. And essentially, this lets doctors and nurses share information with you, the caregiver. So even if you're not the decision maker, you can still know what's going on and you can help advise your loved one, help support them. I really think this is important because when you go, just think about when you go to get something done or something taken care of or something happens and all the information they're giving to you is so much. How nice would it be to have that second set of ears to help you understand? Because depending on what your diagnosis is or what you're going through, you may only hear half of what they're saying. The want, right? So it's a good idea to be able to have someone that can be in the room with you. So I imagine my loved ones sitting in the room by themselves trying to take in all that information. And it's just so nice that I'm able to take it in. And my father pretty much is like, you can tell him anything, but you need to tell Shaunte everything. That's what he says. So the third document, and this one would require an estate planning attorney, I believe, as well as the medical power of attorney. That's how we got ours done. But in this advance directive, or labeled as a living will, these outline your loved one's wishes. You don't want to wait until a crisis to start guessing what they've wanted. So it's a great opportunity to have a conversation, get a sense of understanding of what their wishes are. And here's the truth that nobody tells you: these documents don't mean you're taking over. It just means you're showing up prepared with their trust and your voice aligned. So you are all on the same page with this. That's what this helps to do. And it's documented and no one can really challenge it. So all right, so now that we got those out of the way with documents, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier, but it definitely is something that we as adults should think about for ourselves. Now that we see with our parents being older, the benefits of having our parents or the person you're caring for, your spouse, whomever, your significant other, an adult, somebody, it shows how important that is to have those things in place. So maybe that's something that, we should consider for ourselves. So just something to think about, especially while you're of sound mind and body, to put all these things in place just in the event that you have it. And I kind of think of it like insurance, right? I know we get annoyed with paying for insurance and don't use it, but it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. All right, so let's talk about those appointments that I shared a couple of examples with you about. So I am a big fan of my caregiver notebook. And I mentioned it in my book, Your Name is Joseph, a notebook that I started collecting notes and things that the doctor shared with me, his medications. And I have since migrated it all to OneNote. So something on the cloud, I can access it from my phone or from my iPad, but I walk in with my iPad or my phone and I start a new page, depending on what the appointment is. And something else that I did, I even took pictures of all my dad's cards, his identification cards, his credit cards, all of them. I have pictures of them, as well as his login information to different sites, or I added myself as an authorized user for his accounts, right? So collectively, it's like a command center. Inside that notebook, I have his medication list, I have his insurance cards, doctor's contact information, questions that I want to ask, and even copies of those legal forms that I mentioned. I actually have those electronic because when I show up somewhere and they don't have the information that I have the authorization to do anything, I'm able to say, hey, give me your email address. I can send that to you right away. And that takes care of things quickly. So that's one tip I can share with you. But when you're in those appointments, here's what you do, because you're advocating for your loved one. I mean, you probably already know this, but speak confidently but respectfully, right? So I know that I've had times where I had to get down with some people because I didn't like how something was being done, or I felt that some things were being overlooked. And I knew how to speak with authority and not use the colorful words that I'm used to using, but definitely speak confidently and firmly, but respectfully, because these people are taking care of your loved one, right? Ask questions. I actually write down my questions beforehand. My dad may have some questions, and I know sometimes he won't remember it. So I'll write, the questions down for him. And then I can bring them up like, oh, dad, remember you asked about, and at least lets him start the question. And again, giving him some sense of independence and giving him some ownership in his own care plan as well. So again, ask questions, write them down before you get there if it helps. I do that, have a little bulleted list every time I go. Now, one recommendation I saw somewhere was bringing snacks. And I know there are some appointments that have been pretty lengthy. So yeah, bring some snacks unless you're taking your loved one to get a colonoscopy. I won't do that anymore. And so, for all of you that are like, what is she talking about? Check episode 3 out if you don't know what I'm talking about, and you'll understand about why you shouldn't take snacks with you to your loved one's colonoscopy appointment. All right. So, now we talked about having the authorization to do things, speaking up for your loved one. I have to tell you, sometimes your loved one doesn't want to sign anything. And then the people around you, if you have siblings, sometimes they're thinking you're doing too much. And these are very hard conversations. But everyone needs to understand that you're not necessarily trying to take control. You're just trying to prevent chaos when things actually do get serious. So you can ask your loved one, if something happens, who do you trust to speak for you? Let's get that in writing now, not later. All right. Well, this is fun talking about this stuff. Well, I hope that you got something out of that, some tips, some helpful things for your journey and things that you have to do in caring for your loved one. So I leave you with this. Remember, being a caregiver doesn't mean you have all the answers. It just means that you're willing to ask the right questions and having some paperwork to back it up. You don't need a law degree. You just need a plan, a folder, electronic or hard, and a whole lot of compassion and some patience. You've got this. So just keep showing up. You're doing better than you think. I still want to hear from you. One thing I'm curious about is I have this podcast pushed out on multiple platforms. I would love for you to drop a comment or share or write it in the review. Where are you listening from? Are you listening through audio only on all the other platforms? Are you watching me on YouTube? Which is hilarious to me to think about what goes into being on video, because now I have to be conscious of what I'm wearing and did I have that on in the last episode? But if you do see me in the same outfit, it's probably because I recorded 2 or 3 episodes in the same day. Just giving me a pass. All right. Well, this is the Caregivers Lounge. I'm Shaunte. Until next time, see you.